Have you ever shared a gorgeous travel post only to hear crickets? Or given your best travel tips on your email or a blog and there's nobody that's contacting you or commenting or anything? I'm here to tell you that the problem might not be your content, but how you're balancing inspiration and advising. In today's solo episode, this is Brianna speaking. We're going to break down how to use both storytelling and strategy to move your audience from dreaming to booking without overwhelming them or leaving them hanging. Because I feel like we've all been there, and maybe you still find yourself there. You are posting, but you're not getting the engagement or the follow up that you're looking for. And so I remember early on in my career, I went on this incredible fam trip to Italy, right? I shared stunning photos. There was gorgeous water views on the Italian Riviera, incredible dinners in Florence, some of the seriously most unique bespoke experiences in Rome that I was in awe. I didn't even know these things were possible. And I got comments. There were, "Oh my God, take me with you, bucket list." But at the end of the day, not one person actually inquired about working with me to book their own trip, at least from what I can tell from that specific experience. And so I realized that I was doing a pretty good job at inspiring my audience. But what I was lacking was that I didn't bridge the gap to show how they could have this experience for themselves. Essentially, I was acting as an influencer, but that is not what we are. We need people to book trips with us. And so I realized that I needed to go beyond just sharing the dream. I had to also give them a clear path to make it real. That's where we're going to find the balance of inspiration and advising comes in when we're talking about our marketing content. So today, I want to help you understand where your audience is in the buyer's journey, and I'll kind of explain that a little bit more in detail. And then we're going to kind of talk through a framework of balancing inspiration and advising because both play a part, but they have different roles within our marketing content. And hopefully you get a sense of how to apply this approach to your own travel, to your fam trips, and through using client stories, testimonials, the trips that you're already building for clients, which is a great use of marketing content when you're using it correctly. So all of that is what I hope to accomplish in today's solo episode that is focused on marketing and how to balance the inspiration and advising content that we put out there. Let's start about talking about the buyer's journey. And when you're considering the buyer's journey, meaning where a prospective client is when deciding to work with you, how do we know when we should be inspiring, when we should be advising, and what do both of these things even look like? So let's first start with why this even matters. I think one of the biggest mistakes we can make as travel advisors is assuming our audience is all at the same stage at decision making, right? The reality is our audience is a mix of people in different stages of the buyer's journey. And this applies to pretty much every platform where we are doing some sort of marketing. So that could be on Instagram or Facebook. That could be anybody who has signed up for your newsletter. That could be people who are searching and end up on your blog or your website. Whatever it is that you're putting out content, there are people who are landing on that content or seeing that content, and they're at different stages of their buyer's journey. Some people might just be discovering the idea of working with a travel advisor, and they're like those people that say, "Oh, I didn't even know travel advisors still existed." And they need to be inspired. They need to kind of understand what our point of view is, what we actually do, where we go, what we specialize in, all those things. Other people, they might already trust you, but they're looking for detailed guidance before deciding to book with you. But if you only focus on one type of content, meaning you're only putting out inspiring content or you're only putting out advising content, you are leaving some of that audience behind. I feel like our job as travel advisors and marketers, because we wear that hat too, is to move people through the journey from dreaming to considering to booking. And that starts with understand who we're speaking to, where they are in the journey, and what platform we are speaking to them on. So let's break this down a little bit. The first stage of a buyer's journey is the awareness stage. This is where we really lead with inspiration because these people are either not thinking about travel at all, which is, I follow people on social media that I might be inspired in some way or drawn to like what they do or what they talk about, but it might not be the thing that I'm thinking about in that moment or in this season of life or something. Same is true for us. So they might be discovering what's possible for their next trip, or they might be dating and not yet engaged, so not yet planning a honeymoon, whatever the case may be. They're not actively planning yet, but they're drawn to travel inspiration. And many people in this stage don't realize that they need a travel advisor, but they will, right? So a content approach when you're thinking of the awareness stage and leading with inspiration is focusing on high impact, dreamy inspiration that's going to spark their imagination, make them feel something. This is where we're going to really lean into aspirational storytelling, really great visuals that are immersive. It's very emotion driven captions that pulls them in and makes it about the experience, not the logistics. These people aren't really caring what season is best to go to XYZ or how the ferry system works in Greece or anything like that. They're really wanting the dream, to get caught up in the idea of it. So, an example of content in this type of awareness stage could be something like, say I was visiting Lake Como, right? So imagine waking up in a private villa on the shores of Lake Como, the morning light reflecting off the water as I sip my espresso and plan my leisurely day ahead. This is going to reel people in, and that might be a little generic for you, so excuse the off-the-cuff example, but my goal here is to make people feel something and want to be there. I want them to imagine themselves waking up on the shores of Lake Como, sipping their espresso, looking out over the water and be like, that's the dream. That sounds like perfection. So this can work best on any type of platform or place where you're marketing. But I would say Instagram Reels or stories or, taking really beautiful photos can be a great way to kind of capture this type of content. If you're doing a blog post, it's more about telling a story rather than listing facts. And when you're sharing certain client testimonials or something like that and integrating that into your content, you're highlighting transformational experiences. And that's really how you lead with inspiration and kind of catch their eye at this awareness stage. The next stage that you would kind of think through on where somebody is at in their buyer's journey is the consideration stage. And I think at this stage, we get the opportunity to really mix inspiration and advising. So these might be people who are researching or seriously thinking about a trip. Maybe they just got engaged, but they haven't locked in details yet. They need to kind of understand some logistics, but they still want to feel excited. So maybe these are people that have subscribed to your email newsletter or engaged on social media, like some posts, comment, they interact with you. And so on this content approach, when you're thinking about people in the consideration stage, you lead with inspiration, but you start introducing practical insights to help them make informed decisions because they are at the point of making an actual decision or deciding to book a trip and also book a trip with you. So maybe you're answering common planning questions without like the overwhelm. Like don't get all into the nitty-gritty weeds, but you know that these are things that people are thinking about and thinking through and need answers to, and you're the person that can answer them. You're showing behind the scenes expertise, how you build itineraries, plan logistics, or secure like those exclusive experiences that become part of your itineraries. And you're using client stories or testimonials to illustrate actual results. They were here, then they got this, the transformation. So if you had a client go to Portugal, so you might start with inspiration. One of my clients just came back from the most incredible trip to Portugal. Think sunset wine tastings in the Douro Valley, private boat tours along the Algarve, and intimate dining experiences only locals knew about, right? But then you can follow that up with advising. So for those considering a trip to Portugal, the best time to visit for fewer crowds and perfect weather is, the late in May or September. Planning at least 6 months ahead ensures you get the best, boutique hotels, private experiences, yada, yada, yada. So this can work, again, in all different types of places that you market. So Instagram captions can be starting with inspiration, but then lead in with or follow up with some quick tips. You can use carousels to break down experiences. You can use your email newsletter to have more of a deep dive into a destination, or a blog post that blends storytelling with planning advice. These are ways that you can capture people in the consideration stage by blending both inspiration and advising. The next stage is the decision stage. And I would say that you heavily advise in this stage with a clear call to action. A lot of us can miss this stage, or we only do this stage. But I think there's what I see a lot is people wanting to inspire and having the pretty photos and talking really, really high level, but there's nowhere in their content strategy that goes into where they're advising and giving people the opportunity to do something. So when you think about clients in this particular stage, or people who are in this part of the buyer's journey, they are ready to book, but they might need reassurance before making the final decision. Do they want to work with a travel advisor? Do they want to work with you as their travel advisor? But they've probably engaged with your content in some way. They know your expertise because you've done that kind of mix of posts when they were in that consideration phase. And now they just need a clear next step. How often do we set the table and then not invite people to dinner, right? So when you're thinking of this content approach, you're focusing on practical decision-making content. This is exactly what they need to know to move forward. You're addressing common objections or hesitations. You're sharing testimonials and case studies that reinforce why booking with you is the right choice. Not a travel advisor, but you specifically. You're leaning into what your unique selling propositions are, what makes you different, where you shine, all of those things. And you're providing clear call to actions that guide them towards the next step. Do they need to fill out your form? Do they need to set up a consult call? What do they need to do to actually work with you? If you are never telling people this, then like I said, you're setting the table, but you're not inviting them to the meal. So if I was thinking of what type of content this would look like, say for instance, I was kind of outlining a safari planning post, right? So I'm saying, hey, are you thinking about a safari? Here's what you need to know. The best time to see the Great Migration in Kenya is between July and September. Lodges book up over 12 months in advance, and a private guided experience is going to make all the difference in your experience. So I say that, right? I give them the advice that they need, but then I tell them what to do next. If you want to book this experience, this bucket list trip in 2025 or 2026, by the time you're going to hear this, now is the time to start planning. DM me or inquire via the link in my bio to get started. I am giving them the next step so that they can actually do the thing I want them to do. Again, this can work in all different platforms and in all different mediums. You can have an Instagram or a Facebook post that has those detailed insights. You can write a blog with a clear travel guide. You can have an email sequence that drives conversions, or your website pages that have clear calls to action on them. If people are searching and land on your website and are actually looking for somebody to plan a safari to see the Great Migration in Kenya, they need to know what to do next. Like I said, we need to mix inspiration and advising across all marketing. I don't necessarily think that there's going to be anybody who has an audience that's in where all their audience is at that same stage of the buyer's journey, no matter what the platform is. That's why our content needs to be a mix of both inspiration and advising at all times. If I was thinking through where I consider, this is where I market, I still do think that I kind of lean towards one or the other, maybe a bit more. It's not a 50-50. So on Instagram, I'm thinking, hey, I have a broader audience. I'm certain that all 10K or 11K people who follow me on Instagram are not, in the ready to book. I mean, I wish I had 10,000 people just ready to book, but that's not the case. This is a broader audience. They follow me for a plethora of reasons. And so I would say that most of them, the majority, are in the awareness, possibly the consideration phase. So I'm leading with inspiration, but I'm adding light advising in captions at times. When I consider my email list, this is a warmer audience. They've decided to opt in. They want to hear from me in a deeper way. And so I'm thinking that the majority of these people are mostly in the consideration and possibly decision-making phase. So I can advise a little bit heavier. I can make sure that I'm including calls to action to actually do some things after they've read this email or newsletter that I've sent out. When I'm considering what's on my website or my blog, what I am thinking through is that these people are probably search-based audience, right? They are maybe in the consideration or decision-making phase, because I don't necessarily think that somebody Googling, when to go on safari or when's the best time to see the Great Migration has no actual desire to see the Great Migration. Like, they're actually wanting to do the thing that they're Googling about. And so they're looking for expert information, and I'm leaning into advising when I'm considering the type of vlogs that I'm writing or what's on my website. Where you're at in your advisor journey personally is also going to be needed to take into consideration, because if you're newer, you definitely might need to lean more into the inspiration because you're building an audience and authority on these topics. But as you grow, you probably are shifting a little bit more towards advising and more advising heavy content, since people already trust you and you have that repeat and referral business that you've really built up. And so if you're looking at your book of business and the people that you work with and it's 90% repeat referral, yeah, maybe they just need to know where should they go next. Maybe they need to know when the best time to book XYZ type of trip is. They're not necessarily considering if you are a person that can help them. They already know that. And so depending on where you are as an advisor and what you know about your audience is going to help guide you in considering what type of content is best. All right, so that's all about the buyer's journey. Now I want to kind of share how we use our own travel, fam trips, etc., to actually create this content, and what I kind of think through when I'm thinking about how am I inspiring, how am I advising. Your personal travel and fam trips are gold for content. I say this all the time, but I think I still see plenty of advisors going on fam trips and not capitalizing, not taking a single photo of themselves, not kind of thinking through what to do before, during, and after to really capitalize on this. But this is where we showcase our expertise, the experiences, and the behind the scenes access that we have available to us. And how you share all of this information really matters. So let's start with pre-trip, right? The before. Pre-trip marketing is where we get the opportunity to build excitement and set expectations. So when we're thinking about how do we inspire before we go on a trip, before we go on a fam trip or a personal trip, think about how you're inspiring your audience. Get your audience excited about where you're going, what you'll be experiencing. They should not be surprised to see you in a different country and never have even known that you were about to take a trip. There is so much to be done before you even go on the trip. So, hey, next week I'm headed to Switzerland for a mix of adventure and luxury. I'll be hiking in the Alps, exploring charming lakeside towns, discovering hidden boutique hotels. That gets them, number one, they have the knowledge that you are going to be doing the thing that you are an expert in doing, but also building excitement for that type of experience. And oh my gosh, I was considering a trip to the Alps. I cannot wait to see what they experience and follow along, right? If you are leaning into the advising before and the before part of your trip, then maybe you start educating your audience on what they would need to know. So if you've ever considered Switzerland, fall is an incredible time to visit. There's going to be fewer crowds, perfect weather, stunning autumn colors. You can start to integrate that type of advising before you even go on the trip. So whether this is on Instagram stories, reels, emails to your list, kind of start to think through how you are using that pre-trip marketing time to really inspire and advise your audience, and don't just wait till you're actually on the trip. Now, let's go to during the trip. This is where we balance that inspiration with strategic tips, right? If I'm inspiring my audience while I'm traveling, I want to share immersive, sensory-driven content that makes people feel like they're there with me. I, again, am not trying to be an influencer, but I want to influence the aspiration of what I'm doing for them to want to do the same or similar types of things. So let's stay with Switzerland. Maybe while I'm in Switzerland, I'm showing myself, in the Swiss Alps, blah, blah, blah. Nothing beats waking up in the Swiss Alps with coffee in hand and this view right outside your window. I want them to picture themselves there as well. It is not just about them looking at me. It's about them seeing themselves doing the thing that I am doing. If I'm thinking about advising during the trip, I might start weaving in insider knowledge, exclusive experiences, and planning tips. So For the best hiking in Switzerland, I always recommend basing yourselves in whatever, Swiss Alp town. It's close to stunning trails and the train system makes it easy to explore. I'm giving helpful information, and I'm also like, they can see me doing the thing that I'm talking about. So I know I'm showcasing why I'm the expert and what expertise I actually have to offer. And so again, you can share this in your Instagram feed, whether that's a carousel, reels, IG stories, with polls or questions, so you can actually kind of get to understand what people are hoping to learn or hoping to see while you're traveling, and then give them more of that. So that's during the trip. There's so much we can do during the trip when we're traveling, whether that's a personal trip, whether that's a fam trip. If it's not specifically aligned with what you want to sell or the ideal type of experience, you show what is. There's a lot of smoke and mirrors that can be used when we're going on trips, right? So lean in to what is possible in terms of marketing content while you were on the trip. And then when we get home, post trip, this is where we share insights that lead to inquiries. So recap the trip with a storytelling focused post about the experience. That's going to be how you inspire, right? After 10 days in Switzerland, I can confidently say it's one of the most magical destinations in the world, from breathtaking hikes to luxurious lakeside stays. It's a dream destination for those who love adventure and luxury combined. This is storytelling. It's inspiring. It's not giving them a 10-day Swiss itinerary. It's not telling them how the train system works, but it is showcasing who this trip is right for. Advising would look like breaking down the best takeaways and how your audience can experience the same thing. If you want to plan a trip like this, here's what I would recommend. A, best months to go. B, here's the best mix of adventure and relaxation. C, the top boutique hotels for an elevated, experience on your honeymoon, whatever the case may be. And then again, because you are advising in that type of post, there is a call to action, whether that is on your newsletter, whether that's in a blog post, whether that's on social media, but give them direct advice on what to do next. If Switzerland is on your radar, let's start planning for this fall. Send me an email, fill out this trip design form, whatever it is to take the next step. So you can share this in all of these places. But if it's an advising post and you are literally just talking about the thing you just did and you want them to do something similar, or they're inspired to do something similar, give them a way to take that next step. Let's talk about how to share our clients' trips and how that works with inspiration and advising. Because again, our client trips are some of the best marketing tools that we have. They show real people living out the dream experiences that we designed. It is gold. And if you are not using your actual clients traveling, then you are missing out on really great marketing content. The key here is not just posting, look at where my client went, look at what my client said, but using their trip to both inspire others and showcase your expertise, because you played a part in the experience they had, a very important part, and you want to showcase that. So I'm going to walk you through it the same way I did your own travels, but like thinking through, hey, I didn't travel, but I planned this trip. And so how can I use that before, during, after in the same way, right? So before the trip, it is inspirational to say, hey, what the client was dreaming of and why they were excited about this trip. So my client came to me wanting a bucket list trip to Portugal. They wanted wine, history, coastal charm. Here's how we designed their dream itinerary. Now, if you were leaning more onto the advising side, you can start to show how you tailor experiences to those clients' needs. So they wanted a balance of relaxation and adventure. So we built an itinerary with 3 nights Lisbon, 2 nights Douro Valley for wine tasting, and then 4 nights in the Algarve for stunning beaches. You share this on different platforms, but you pay attention to what you're trying to actually do. Am I inspiring or am I advising here? And lean into that. While clients are traveling, you're sharing updates or behind the scenes insights. So share a real moment from their trip with, permission, of course, that highlights the experience. So just got this update from my clients in Portugal. They're having the best time on their private boat tour in the Algarve. This coastline is unreal. Do you see how that's more inspiring than just saying client repost? Like, give a little bit more that shows why this moment matters and why it's such a highlight. If you are advising, perhaps you're giving a practical tip about that experience. So if you want a similar experience, I recommend booking a private boat in advance. It's the best way to explore hidden caves and quiet beaches. When I went to Portugal this last summer, of course, there are plenty of boats going out to the Bendigo Caves or what have you, but the private experience, that's what my clients mentioned to me. This was such a cool experience, and we were so thankful that we had the boat all to ourselves and weren't sharing it with 17 other people or what have you. So you're sharing that small piece of advice. It's not like the right type of client is not just going to be like, oh, great, thanks for telling me. Now I don't need to call you. It's really showcasing how you up-level an experience for your clients. Post-trip, you're sharing client success stories that convert. So when you think of inspiration in this type of strategy, you can share a powerful testimonial that has a storytelling hook. So, for example, Sarah and her family wanted a trip that felt seamless, luxurious, and unforgettable. They just returned from Portugal, and here's what she said. Everything was effortless. Every transfer, every hotel, every experience, completely stress-free. We felt so taken care of. The idea here is not just to share the thing that they said, it's to create the storytelling hook that makes it all make sense. Where the transformation happened. Here's what they wanted. Here's, once they returned, here's what they said. That completely showcases how what they wanted was fulfilled. That's the transformation. When you are looking to advise and using client success stories or testimonials, show how your expertise made the difference. So here's what went into designing this experience, right? Handpicked boutique hotels based on XYZ, a mix of guided and independent time because they didn't want every day completely structured and they wanted to make sure they had time to explore on their own, seamless logistics so they never had to stress, blah, blah, blah. After you share how your expertise made the difference, you, again, make sure you include the call to action. If you want a trip to Portugal like this, let's start planning. Email me, fill out my form, whatever, via the link in my bio. You want people to take that next step because they're like, heck yeah, I want that. What do I need to do? You got to tell them. We are able to use client feedback to drive more bookings because the feedback isn't just for you. While that is also important, how did I do? What did you appreciate about my services? What can I do better next time? All that stuff. We are also using it as content because it is gold when shared the right way. We're turning their words into testimonials and social proof that really highlights how we do what we do so well and where we are experts. If they're saying best trip we've ever taken, every detail was perfect, you can use this in an Instagram carousel or on your website to really show that social proof. You can also use their feedback to create new marketing content. So did they love a specific experience? Okay, great. Go create a post about it or a blog about it. Why was it so memorable to them? Were they stressed about planning before working with you? How can you use that to highlight how you solve problems for your clients, right? And then tie it in to future offers. After seeing how much so-and-so loved their Portugal trip, I'm opening up a few more spots for custom Portugal itineraries. I mean, is that true? Who knows? But it could be something that you could kind of just, fudge a little to work to your benefit. All of this to say, I've kind of talked, and I know that I talk a little bit fast, so hopefully you're not listening to me at 1.5. But I want to bring this all together because I hope that if you take nothing else away from this episode, you remember that your audience is always at different stages in the buyer's journey. And some need to be inspired, some need guidance, and some just need a clear next step. So your content needs to reflect all three of those things. And depending on what you know about your audience, you can decide how to divvy that up. B, your personal travel, your fam trips, and your client stories are gold, but only if you use them strategically. Don't just post beautiful photos. Don't just repost whatever your client put up on their Instagram. Mix in inspiration with advising so people understand why they should book and how to do it. Where you share matters. So, like I said, Instagram leans more inspirational in my mind. Your email list can be deeper on advising. Your website or your blog should build authority and trust. Understand the different places that you are marketing and using for marketing and the content that goes there, and based off of who the audience is and where they're at in the buyer's journey. And as your business grows, your content strategy can and should evolve. So newer advisors, yes, you might need to focus more on inspiration to build that trust and authority, but established advisors can shift more into advising and conversion driven content because they've spent the time building that book of business, and most of us are working more on that repeat and referral business at this stage in our careers. So I want to challenge you this week. If you are like, wow, this is something new, I haven't really considered this when I'm creating my content, just go back and look at like your last 5 posts or your last 5 emails or newsletters and ask yourself, are these all one thing or the other? Are they all inspiration? Are they all advising? Or do you have a good mix of both? If you're missing one or the other, you can start to tweak your pieces of content and create that balance. And honestly, like say for instance, you're like, I have only ever done inspirational content. I've never even thought to kind of like sneak in some advising content. Take that same piece of content and just look and tweak it to make it more to the advising side. It doesn't even have to be brand new. It can just be from a different lens, a different filter, and still kind of using that same content to do something slightly different. I'd love to see like what you're doing with this, if this is kind of resonating at all. So if this episode has kind of shifted the way you're thinking about marketing or how you create content, let me know. Don't be afraid to say so. I would appreciate that, or how I can make it more helpful. So DM me on Instagram. Let me know what resonated with you the most or what kind of didn't make sense. And if you're ready to take your marketing to the next level where it is strategic, intentional, and designed to attract your deal clients, I am just shamelessly plugging that this is the exact thing that we do in the Advisor Accelerator. In fact, the last 4 weeks have been us taking this concept and then diving even deeper. Okay, great. What is our content strategy? What is our content plan? What are we doing? And what types of content are we putting out there the next time we go on a FAM? We take these ideas deeper and help our advisors implement them in a way that works for their business, because I believe that marketing isn't just about showing travel. It's about guiding our audience from dreaming to booking, because we're running businesses here, guys. Like I said over and over, we're not just influencers. So that's not the goal here. The goal is to actually get clients, attract the right clients, and get them to book with us. When you balance inspiration and advising, you become the expert they trust to bring their travel dreams to life. So thank you for hanging out with me today, and I will see you on the next episode. Have a great day.